Hi, this is Mrs. Clark, and welcome to my video on how to create a histogram. So you've got 3 pages that are going to go into your notebook. You have this little one on steps to create a histogram, and you got this page that you're going to cut in half. So we've got 3 pages to put in our notebook. I'm going to put in the steps first, and then I will put in this creating a histogram page and then this follow-up page after. So go ahead and do that as well, and then we will go through this step by step. So just to make sure we're on the same page, I have spoken to the teachers that teach you next year, and I've asked that they share with me what vocabulary they use when they do statistics to make sure we're using the same terms. And so one of the things that they mentioned was that the word intervals is used here. And intervals is what I call it, but also other words. Let me circle that so it's a little bit different. Intervals, there we go, is what I use, but there are a couple other words that they use that are interchangeable with intervals. So the word bin, and you'll see that sometimes in a worksheet, BIN, is interchangeable with intervals, and the word class. So I would add those little notes there, so that way you have all the vocabulary words all together. So all of those mean the same thing. When we create a histogram, the first thing we have to do is create a frequency table. We're going to look at our minimum and our maximum value of our data set, so that's our highest number and our lowest number. We're going to decide how we want to group them. If they're really spread apart, we might group them in bigger groups. So we might use like 10s or 30s or 40s, depending on how spread apart they are. Or if they're closer together, we might use like 2s or 5s. So we're going to kind of decide how we group it if it's not already given to us in the problem. Then we'll go through the data set, we'll tally the frequency for each interval. We will then make sure our horizontal axis is evenly scaled. Using our intervals, we'll make sure our vertical axis is evenly scaled based on our frequencies. We'll draw bars for each interval, and the height of the bar is the frequency of that interval. So we're going to go through these steps right now and do this example and create a histogram. We're actually going to create 2 histograms, but we will start with looking at this data on this first page here. So it says a histogram can be used to represent the distribution of numerical data. So remember, a bar chart will often use categorical data, but a histogram uses numerical data. The data represents the number of days it takes for different tomato plants to produce tomatoes. So when they plant the tomato plant to when they see the first tomato, they counted the number of days, and that's the information that we have here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 30 different tomato plants here represented, and the number of days that it's taking them to produce tomatoes. So first thing we need to do is use the information to complete what's called a frequency table. So frequency is, what that means is how often is something happening. So to calculate the frequency in this part of the table, what we need to do is we need to count the number of data values that fall in each interval. And then we're going to use this table here to help us do that. So we will do that in just a moment. First, we're going to make a couple important reminders here at the bottom. First thing we want to write down is we want to make sure that our bars are touching. And that they are the same widths. The reason being is in a bar chart there are sometimes gaps between the bars, but in a histogram the numbers are continuous, so the bars should be touching each other with no space. The second thing we want to write down is a little bit about our intervals here. So if we notice, we have 40 to 50, 50 to 60, but you see 50 is represented in both intervals. So what we're going to do is make a note of where does 50 actually go. So the 40 to 50 interval means that we're looking at numbers that are greater than or equal to 40, but less than 50. So from 40 to 49.9. And a second little note here, I'm going to put a little star next to it, is that 50 is included in the next interval. And so when we go through and actually tally up how many are in each one, we will want to remember that piece of information. So we're going to look, I'm going to use a couple highlighters in this next part. If you have some, feel free to grab them. But we want to know how many data values are in the 40 to 50 range. So in this data set, only 47 is between 40 and 49.9. So there's only one data value, so I'm going to put a 1 here. Then I'm going to look at how many data values are in the 50 to 60 range. So I've got 52, 53, 55, 57, but I don't want to count 60, so there are only 4 in that range. So my frequency is 4. Then I'm going to go to the 60 to 70 range. I've got 60, 61, 62, 63, 65, 65, 65, 65, 68, but not 70. So in the 60 to 70 range, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So put a 9 here under frequency. If you run out of colors, I'm not sure if the yellow one will work well on this paper or not, you can always use shapes or you can repeat colors. So 70 to 80, I've got 70, 72, 72, 75, 75, 75, 76, 77, 78, don't include 80. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 again. Looks like I've used up all my colors. So you can either repeat again with pink if you want, or you can use shapes. So here's how I might use shapes. I might circle the next ones. So in the 80 to 90 group, I've got 80, 81, 82, 85, 88, 89. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I might put a triangle on this last one. 90. So in the last group, which is my triangle group, there's only 1. So the reason that we need this table here is because we need to know for each of these intervals how high to make my bar. So it said here in our steps, draw bars for each interval. The height of the bar is the frequency of that interval. So when I go to my graph, you'll notice that I already set it up for you. The bottom has days to produce fruit. We got 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. What we're going to do is add little tick marks above it so that we can try to line them up and keep it pretty even. We're not on graph paper, so we got to just do our best to be as precise as we can. And you do have little tick marks on the side for the number of tomato plants. So we go from 1, although the lowest is 1, the highest is 9. So we're going to use most of this scale. But if you notice, your intervals start 30 to 40, but we didn't have any values in 30 to 40. So if there's none, then I just leave this part blank. But from 40 to 50, I need to make a bar that goes up to 1. So if I go over here to where the 1 is, I'm going to kind of eyeball that it needs to go from here to here. So from 40, I'm going to go up to 1, over, and down at 50. And if you want to, you can shade in your bars. Some people like to shade in every other one. From 50 to 60, I have 4, so I'm going to need to go up to 4, which is about up here. I'm going to go up to 4, I'm going to go over. Sometimes I go up on both of them and then connect them across. So that's about 4 for 50 to 60. 60 to 70 goes up to 9, so 9 is way up here. And sometimes I'll use my pencil and I will do like a little guiding line all the way across so I know that I'm going high enough. And I may shade this one in because I shaded the first one in. Just to kind of give you in every other, you could shade in each one if you wanted. And 70 to 80 is also 9, so this one's going to be just as tall. And you're not using a ruler, so it's not perfect, but we try to make it as precise as possible. 80 to 90 has to go up to 6, so that's about here. So 90, I'm going to go straight up and then over. I might shade this one in. And then 90 to 100 is just 1 again. So it's going to be about here. So there's our histogram for the first one. Now for the second one, we are going to actually create another histogram, but this time, these intervals aren't going to be like the ones we had before, where it was 40 to 50. Now we're going to use what they have down here, which you notice go by 5s. So I'm going to need to recreate a new frequency table, and this is where we're going to have to get a little creative. You may want to use this part of your paper, or you may want to do it at the bottom here, and turn it sideways, and we're going to make a new frequency table where we go, instead of 40 to 50, I'm going to go 40 to 45. So let's see, 40 to 45. Then I'm going to go 45 to 50. You could also do it on the binding of your notebook, you know, the white part around where you glued in your paper, if that's easier for you. Then I'm going to have to do 50 to 55, 55 to 60, 60 to 65, 65, 70, 70 to 75. So I'm always making sure I'm starting with the number that I leave off with over here. 75 to 80, 80 to 85, 85 to 90, and 90 to 95. And I don't need to go any higher than that because the last one is 90 and that fits in here. So if you need maybe a post-it or something, you could use that if you can't find a place to squeeze it in to your notebook. So we need to go through and tally up how many are in each one. So you can use the idea that we have here. 47 is not going to go in this 40 to 45 one. It's going to go in the 45 to 50 one. So I have none here, but I've got 1 in the 45 to 50. Then between 50 and, remember, it's 54.9, I've got 1, 2. Then 55 to 59, I've got 1, 2. So now these green ones are going to be split up into 60 to 65 and 65 to 70. So under 65, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. 65 to 70, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 70 to 75, I've got 1, 2, 3. Then I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the 75 to 80. 80 to 85, I've got 1, 2, 3, only 3. 85 to 90, I've got 1, 2, 3. And then 90 to 95, I've got 1. So we're going to go to our graph here, and we're going to make bars that are 0, 1, 2, 2, 4, 5. So we're really not going nearly as high as we were going before. And we're going to make those little tick marks above the numbers so that my bars are about the same width. And if anytime we have a 0, we don't put a bar. So the first place that we need a bar is from 45 to 50, where we need it to go 1 high. So 45 to 50 is where I start. It's going to go up to 1 and over and down. And then 50 to 55, I've got to go up to 2. So that's about up to here. I got to stay at 2 for the next one. I got to go up to 4 for the next one, so that's way up here. Then I got to go up to 5 for the one above that. And if I'm going way too fast, feel free to pause it and then do it at your own pace. 70 to 75, I'm going up to 3. So that's in here. I want to make sure I'm in between my 2 and my 4. Then I have 75 to 80. Whoa, that one's all the way up at 6, so that's way up here. So I need it to go all the way up here. And I have a lot of practice, so I'm really good at eyeballing this. You might want to get a notebook or a ruler or something if that's helpful. 80 to 85 goes up to 3, so I'm going to match it up with this one. And then the next one's also at 3, so keep that in line. And then 90 to 95 is 1, and I don't have anything from 95 to 100. So you can always go back and shade in every other one, or the coloring apart is not really important to me. It does help, though, see the difference between the bars sometimes if you shade. And there you have it. So we will talk about the differences between these two and why we made two in class, but make sure that gets glued into your notebook. And thanks for watching.